Welcome, everyone. I'm calling our meeting to order this evening at 6:15. We will be convening into private session shortly, which you'll see if you're watching this on the live stream. We will be a bit of a delay until we come back at 7 o'clock back in public session. So I will call our meeting to order. For attendance, we have all trustees in the room. We do have Trustee Olmsted sends her regrets this evening, and we have Trustee Burgess on the phone. So I'm down to approval of the agenda. Do I have a mover to approve the agenda? Trustee Cook, and seconded by Trustee Hatfield. Do we have any discussion on this? On the approval of the agenda? Ooh, all in support? Right, there is an amendment. Thank you for that. I didn't quite get through no amendments to the agenda, but it's a goal. So all in support again? Hands up. Thank you very much. That's supported. We will, looking for
now joining.
Thank you. I'm looking for a mover to convene into private session. Trustee Sartori, seconded by Trustee Sipcar. We are now in private session. Give it just a few minutes. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for your patience with us as we wrapped up our private session. So for those of you that are tuning into our public session beginning at 7 p.m., we did open public session at 6:15 with call to order, attendance, and approval of the agenda. I will go through attendance again for this portion of the meeting. We do have Trustee Olmsted has sent her regrets, and we have Trustee Burgess on the phone with us. And I will now read our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Moving forward through our agenda, do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? Or in here? Seeing none, actions of the board meeting private session.
That's me. So I need a mover for F1, Trustee Hatfield, a seconder, Trustee Leclerc. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Going down to G, approval of the minutes of February 16th. I need a mover to approve those minutes. Trustee Leclerc, seconded by Trustee Hatfield. Any discussion? So I did note on page 6, and I had let Madame Leboeuf know about this, and I thank you to Trustee Burgess for pointing it out, that on L5, we just didn't capture that vote was called and it carried on L5 on page 6 there. So we did do it, we just didn't capture it in the minutes there. So that will be added and amended to the minutes there. So any more further discussion? All in support as amended. Appreciated. Thank you very much. Any business arising from the minutes? Any business arising? Seeing and hearing none. I'm on to presentations. We have our student trustee presentation. Go ahead.
Okay. March has been a productive and exciting month for Isabel and I. We officially passed the halfway mark of our terms as student trustees, virtually attended the Ontario Student Trustees Association's annual Board Council Conference, and continued to work with Student Senate and its 3 subcommittees to consult and create change surrounding matters important to students. At the OSTA conference in February, Isabel and I heard from guest speakers from People for Education and Student Mental Health Ontario, as well as several alumni from the Ontario Student Trustees Association who shared with us their post-secondary experiences. We also met with the members of the working groups we co-chair, discussed in small groups some of the upcoming initiatives of the organization, and even participated in lively debates. The Ontario Student Voice Awards Working Group, which I co-chair, was pleased to release the applications for the annual $1,000 Ontario Student Voice Awards. The 2021 Ontario Student Voice Awards will be awarded to 6 graduating students who dedicate their time and passion to one of the following: commitment to justice, dedication to the arts, entrepreneurial initiative, environmental stewardship, sports leadership, and student voice. We encourage graduating students to apply for this unique scholarship opportunity through the Ontario Student Trustees Association's website. The application deadline is April 6th. The Student Wellbeing Working Group that Isabel co-chairs is working hard on creating a post-secondary handbook. This handbook will include information and resources on a variety of post-secondary pathways, including university, college, workplace, and a gap year to help Ontario students transition from secondary to post-secondary life. Student Senate had another successful meeting in March with many of our student leaders wearing their new GECDSB Student Senate sweaters. Isabel and I would like to thank Superintendent Howitt, Ms. Bates, and Mr. O'Neill for consulting with us on the virtual school survey. We would also like to thank Ms. Olivero for taking the time to speak with us regarding anti-racism education and for her continued support of Student Senate's anti-racism subcommittee. The Anti-Racism Subcommittee, co-chaired by Hema Patel and Wade Massey, has been busy planning a virtual anti-racism seminar for student leaders that will be taking place on March 31st. Guest speakers will include Irene Moore Davis, an educator at St. Clair College, president of the Essex County Black Historical Research Society, and the author of 2 books on local Black history, as well as Ms. Olivero, the board's Equity and Inclusive Education Officer, and Ms. Browning Morgan, a re-engagement attendance counselor. The subcommittee is compiling anti-racism resources for students, recently curating 2 music playlists on Spotify and YouTube. Isabel and I would like to thank Hema and Wade for their continued work and student leadership as co-chairs of the Anti-Racism Subcommittee. The Environmental Sustainability Subcommittee's Thrifted Outfit Challenge on social media was a success. Secondary students from across the board wore their thrifted outfits to school on March 11th and 12th and sent us pictures through Instagram of their thrift store finds. The subcommittee is continuing to plan for a spring conference and is currently in the process of finalizing keynote speakers, along with planning engaging breakout sessions for students. The subcommittee is also organizing an art exhibit for the spring where students can share their artistic talents with other students from across the board relating to the personal impact of the environment. The Mental Health and Wellbeing Subcommittee, chaired by Isabel, continues to work on an awareness campaign to help inform students on how to access mental health support and resources. With the support of Ms. Polly, the subcommittee is planning various student mental health webinars for the spring. Isabel and I also served on the Student Trustee Interview Committee this month. It has been an honor to hear from the exceptional student leaders of our board. We would like to thank all of the candidates for their interest in the position of student trustee. Isabel and I are appreciative of the ongoing support of the Board of Trustees and senior administration. We appreciate your interest in consulting with us on matters important to students. We are excited for the second half of our terms as we continue to accomplish our goals for the year and begin to mentor the incoming student trustees. Thank you.
The student of the month for March is Autumn Owens, a grade 12 student at Bell River District High School, and she is the epitome of this month's theme of creativity. Autumn's passion for creativity and arts is unmatched. She is pursuing a specialist high skills major in arts and culture, taking classes in visual arts, photography, and creative writing. She has been named the Noble Artist of the Month, an honor given to talented and creative artists at Bell River District High School. A well-known student leader in the drama department at Bell River, Autumn not only has many talents, leading roles in the school's theatrical productions, but she also paints in the background sets. Many teachers have her paintings on display in their classes. She practices her visual art in her own studio where she works as a freelance artist, hosts art exhibits, and teaches art techniques to children and her classmates. She creates hand-painted Christmas ornaments that she sells at a local craft market, and her paintings have been displayed at Art in the Park. Outside of school, she takes professional watercolor classes to improve her skills. Autumn has passion for bettering her community through her creative abilities. She recently volunteered her skills as an illustrator for a coloring book with the Trevor Project, an American national nonprofit organization that provides crisis intervention and suicide prevention services for LGBTQ youth. The project has received over 21,000 downloads and raised over $3,000 that the Trevor Project will use in its work supporting youth. Outside the art studio, Autumn is passionate about advocating for change in her role as the leader of Bell River's Gay Straight Alliance. She's a peer tutor and a volunteer at craft markets, grade 8 nights, and art nights. She's also captain of the swim team and is actively pursuing her lifeguarding qualifications. Congratulations to Autumn for being selected as March Student of the Month.
Thank you very much to both of you, and congratulations to Autumn. Any questions for our student trustees? Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on to I2, we have our Leamington District Secondary School Eco Team joining us on the phone, and they do have a presentation as well. I believe there are 10 of them, am I correct? So we'll watch their presentation, and then they'll be available for questions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ben, and I am in the grade 9 IB prep program at Leamington District Secondary School. So this is my first year as part of the Eco team here at LDSS. This year, we have been meeting virtually, but I have learned that although we have come very far, we still have a long way to go and must keep working hard to get there. We want to meet with you today to thank you for your support of our environmental initiatives, to provide an update on our actions over the past year, and to offer to continue to collaborate with you to achieve our shared environmental goals. We were thinking you could use some good news in this challenging school year.
Hi, my name is Kara, and I'm the LDSS Minister of the Environment. To provide a bit of background, our school and the board joined the Ontario Eco Schools Certification Program in 2006. This program guides us through the various aspects of environmental leadership in our school, such as assessing and reducing energy use and waste and greening the schoolyard. We have been certified as a Platinum Eco School in this program for the past 5 years. As you can see from the progress bar in the image to the left, we've made some great headway so far this year and are again on track for a Platinum certification. The Eco Schools organization sometimes asks us for updates on our initiatives and shares our progress in their website, as you can see in the image on the right. Last year, Ontario Eco Schools became Eco Schools Canada, and now the program is open to schools all across the country. We love being a part of Eco Schools because it connects us to students and staff from other schools and to community partners. It can also save the board money. As part of this program, we track our energy use and have found ways to reduce our usage at school almost every year. Our Eco team has earned several awards and grants to improve our schoolyard and add technology to our building to support our initiatives. Our community partners have also led to unique opportunities for students. For example, I am part of the Environmental Specialist High Skills Major program, and my current co-op placement is with the Essex Region Conservation Authority's Climate Change Specialist. In this placement, I am working to develop energy-saving lessons for elementary students in our region. Last year, the main focus of our team was climate action. In September, we joined millions of people worldwide in a global climate strike. It was a peaceful and organized event, and we were thrilled to be joined by community members, partners from our Conservation Authority, and one of our town councillors.
Hey everyone, my name is Crystal, and I am the Eco Team President and Deputy Prime Minister of LDSS. Last December, I was one of the organizers of a Climate Action Summit, which we held to encourage dialogue and climate action between high schools and municipal leaders from the 8 municipalities in our region. At the summit, we learned from experts about the impact of climate change on ecosystems, human health, property, and the economy. In the afternoon, students worked with their own municipal leaders on climate solutions. High schools from every municipality were involved, and municipal teams included a mix of elected officials and municipal administration. We are so grateful to Superintendent Pike and Rachel Olivero for supporting this event. The Climate Action Summit was a huge undertaking for us, but so worthwhile. It was covered by multiple media outlets, and our Eco Team members were interviewed. The meetings between schools and municipal leaders included discussions about the local impacts of climate change and what the municipality is doing to adapt and mitigate our emissions. Lastly, we charted out ways for our students to help with local climate action initiatives. Most schools have held follow-up meetings with their municipal leaders. The photo on the left shows our meeting with our town's administration and our mayor. At the meeting, we got updates on flooding issues, made plans to hold a Community Earth Day tree planting at a local park, and charted out future opportunities for collaborative climate action. Sometimes we also attend town council meetings to make presentations and encourage environmental responsibility.
Hello, I'm Melody Dewick, and I'm a grade 10 Eco Team member. Last March, just before schools closed, some of our Eco Team members were asked to present at the Windsor Cities and Climate Action Youth Climate Forum. Me and other students from across Ontario met to learn from experts and from one another. Some of our Eco Team members delivered a workshop to help students develop their own active and engaged Eco Teams at their school. One of the people I met there I still work with today through the Windsor Essex Youth Climate Council. They're very active in environmental advocacy and intersectionality, and I've been friends with them since. In addition to climate action, our Eco Team has also been working to educate ourselves about environmental racism. Some of us were invited to attend the Windsor International Film Fest showing of There's Something in the Water, which talked about places in Canada where polluting industries are specifically and purposefully located next to Black and Indigenous communities. This makes the soil and water toxic, and so the people living there become very sick and have a higher amounts of sickness and related deaths. We've continued to learn more about environmental racism since then and its unproportionate impacts against Black and Indigenous POC communities, and are thankful for the guidance of Dr. Ola, who has joined us to discuss systemic racism.
Hi, I'm Noah, a virtual school student and member of the LDSS Eco Team. With over 40 members, we need to meet regularly and stay up to date with our ongoing initiatives. Before schools closed last March, we met every Wednesday at lunch in a classroom. Nowadays, we use Microsoft Teams. Sometimes different members take turns leading the meeting. We try to start with good environmental news, followed by something we'd like to improve. We discuss school and community-based issues and partnerships we're involved in, as well as provincial, national, and global issues. The photo on the left shows our first in-person meeting of last school year, and the one on the right shows one of our first meetings after lockdown had begun. The virtual setting isn't ideal in some ways, but it has allowed us to include students from other schools and guest speakers in our meetings. Students like me who are attending virtual school full-time this year have been able to participate in every meeting and will likely continue to occasionally meet virtually when we are back in school every day.
Hi, my name is Anna Dawson, and I'm a grade 12 IB Diploma program student. And I have found that many of my IB Diploma requirements intersect with things that we learn in Eco Team. For example, as a part of a CAST project, or in other words, a creativity, activity, and service project, I applied for and received a grant to plant native trees near Hillman Marsh to provide flooding protection and more wildlife habitat. For a project in my physics course, I'm investigating how greenhouse light pollution varies with distance while taking cloud cover into consideration. On the image you see on the right, you can see another CAST project I did where I made cat collar covers to prevent cats from hunting over 300 million birds per year in Canada.
I am also a grade 12 IB Diploma Program student and have had a similar experience to Anna's with lots of Eco Team and IB overlap. For example, for my extended essay, which is a 4,000-word essay on a topic of interest, I investigated Canada's progress toward the targets set in the Paris Climate Agreement, and this led to my involvement as the only youth member of the Essex County Climate Task Force, as well as writing articles for a climate newsletter and interviews with our local newspaper. My experiences with Eco Team and the task force have also led to my decision to enter an environmental engineering program when I begin university this fall.
Once COVID restrictions are lifted, we look forward to a return to many of the initiatives we normally participate in. For example, we love to work in our Peace Garden, which was made possible through donations from Caldwell First Nation and Friends of Point Pelee. The Peace Garden acts as an outdoor classroom, and we've planted lots of trees, shrubs, and flowers for shade, and to feed local pollinators. Trustees Burgess and Olmsted joined us for the grand opening of this garden. We've learned from local experts about the many threats to our watershed and how important it is to conserve and expand our wetlands. Several times each year, we do the shoreline cleanups at our local beaches. The amount of plastic we collect is outstanding and disturbing. In partnership with our Conservation Authority and Caldwell First Nation, we planted over 400 trees, and we've also helped convert an old marina into a living wetland. Eco Team has also designed and delivered lessons about the importance of wetland conservation to our local elementary schools. Some Eco Team members, such as myself, have learned to identify local amphibians so we can participate in the Marsh monitoring program, which monitors bird and amphibian populations throughout North America. Amphibians are important indicators of the health of our wetlands, and this program provides important data to scientists monitoring this important ecosystem. The monitoring program involves going out to a local marsh after sunset once a month in April, May, and June to identify frogs and toads by their call. To make monitoring much easier, we use a helpful award-winning app designed by one of our very own computer science students.
Hello, I'm Michelle, a grade 11 Eco Team member who is also in the IB Diploma program. Due to COVID-19, we've had to adapt our Eco Team to one that is active online. As Noah mentioned, this includes having online meetings. We also still try to hold events where staff and students can all participate in environmental action. For example, we recently participated in National Sweater Day. In this event, people turned down their thermostats and wore sweaters to bring awareness to the importance of saving energy. We thank the many members of our school board and administration who participated. You can see evidence of their participation in the photos on the slide.
Hi, I'm Rendell Arner, a grade 10 IB prep student and Eco Team member. This year, without the usual opportunities we would have to plan and carry out initiatives in person, many of us have participated in environmental action in alternative ways, such as training, webinars, and joining other youth-led environmental organizations in our area. Some examples are the Windsor Essex Youth Climate Council, Fridays for Future Windsor Essex, youth organizing training with the Future Ground Network, and butterfly ranger training with the David Suzuki Foundation.
When I started at LDSS, it was the first year the school was open. There are many things we love about our school. For example, we love its central location in our town so students can walk and bike. Fun fact, I have walked to school nearly every day since grade 9. We all love the natural light that comes up in through the big windows. We especially love the atrium where we can normally meet to eat lunch, collaborate, and hold events. Environmental sustainability is a part of our school culture. We have a Minister of Environment as an elected position on student parliament. We love that we can plant trees and gardens at our school, and we appreciate the effort and the support from our many community partners who provide healthy snacks and athletic facilities for our students. We notice lots of examples of environmental responsibility in the Greater Essex County District School Board. For example, we have had discussions with your single-use plastic ban committee. We think it's excellent that our board is making this a priority. We also notice that effort is made to reduce energy use, for example, by switching lighting to LEDs. Furthermore, we've heard that new schools are being built at 30% beyond building code requirements for energy efficiency. That's amazing, and we'll hope you'll continue to seek innovative ways to save energy. For example, my classmate Lily, who spoke earlier, is working with municipal and industry leaders to look for opportunities in Windsor and Essex County to share heat and power between buildings like schools and other facilities. This could potentially save our board lots of money in energy costs, and it is being done in many other locations quite successfully. In the future, we would like schools to make active transportation a priority. It is good for the planet and for our health. We'd like you to encourage the electrification of buses since Ontario has relatively clean electricity sources. We think we should work towards zero waste schools and have composting picked up and taken to an anaerobic digester to generate electricity. Lastly, we would like to see students encouraged to eat healthy, plant-based lunches, better for us and better for the planet. We look forward to continuing to collaborate with our school board in the future. We thank you for your support and hope we can count on in the future. It's going to take all of us to make a better planet.
Thank you very much, both for that presentation that was very well done. Thank you very much, and for all the work that's contained in it. It's incredibly impressive. Do we have any questions for the LDSS Eco team who is on the phone with us this evening? Trustee Cook.
Thank you for your presentation. The terminology I'm going to use is one that we discussed earlier. Can you tell me what your definition of environmental resources is? Or whatever?
Hi, it's Lisa Jeffrey. I'm the teacher lead for the Eco team. Did you say environmental resources?
Yes, environmental resources.
Did we use that term in the presentation?
It's okay. I think you answered my question. Thank you.
We can talk about energy resources or, anyway, yeah, sorry.
Chair. Thanks very much, Lisa. Do we have any other questions from trustees? Go ahead, Trustee Sipkar.
I have a question, Madam Chair. Burgess. Sure, I'll go. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you're doing out there in Leamington. Eco Schools is a really important initiative, and just to see all of it in one presentation, it's really encouraging to see that, our students take initiative like that, and I'm very encouraged by it. I know that there's still a lot to be done, but you guys play a really important role in inspiring us to and keep pushing those important issues. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Burgess, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. It's further clarification on, I guess, environmental resource. Thank you for that great presentation. And since I'm on the phone, thank you for sending the presentation ahead of time. I clicked it at the right time and was able to follow it in real time. Perfect. So that doesn't always happen. It's extreme delay. So thank you for that. I'm wondering, the Eco Team leader or any of the participants, are they aware of the definition of sustainability as a three-legged stool between economic resources, which is all the finances of the area, the human resources, society as a whole, that would be all the folks that are involved in school, and environmental resources, which means built environment and all the surrounding lands, water, natural resources that the school has. Have you ever heard of the definition of sustainability as the intersection of human, economic, and environmental resources?
You know what, Trustee Burgess, thank you for your question. I think I can handle that. It's Lisa Jeffrey again, and I hope my students can agree with me here, but we have discussed these issues. Sometimes we refer to it more from a business sense, I guess, as the triple bottom line, because sometimes we are finding ourselves in a position where we're needing to persuade political leaders or industry leaders, in our case in Leamington, the greenhouse industry, that there are often benefits to our environment as well as our economy and social well-being in any of the steps that we're taking. So we have found, for example, when we visit our municipal council, that we first need to address economic issues, followed by social, and the environmental priorities that we would have are, benefits as well, but they're not a priority at this time, it would seem. So we're working on moving that up the priority list, but it's okay when we view it all together, we see that everyone benefits. But I like the way you referred to it, that approach as well, Trustee Burgess. Thank you.
Another name for it is the triple bottom line. Sustainability is the triple bottom line, because if one part goes, the others are affected, right? Thank you.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from trustees? Seeing none, I'll wrap it up by saying it's not only impressive to see the amount of work, but the kinds of work that you're doing. So not only reaching out to each other, but within your school to the further school community, to other schools, to municipalities, and further out into things that affect all of us in our front and backyards. So I am, as always, incredibly inspired by the work of our students, and thank you for your continued work in this. And thank you for joining us this evening and sending that video along. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Take care. Okay, so we'll move through our agenda to delegations. We do have a delegation this evening, and actually we have 3 delegates.
Anna Dawson
is now exiting.
Oh, I think we'll give it a few seconds for everybody to...
Randall is now exiting.
Crystal Robinson
is now exiting.
Kara Braun
is now exiting.
Ishol Tariq
is now exiting.
Imagine if this happened when you were in class and it just announced that you were leaving. I think that might be everybody. So I do apologize to the next delegation if we do have some people leaving in the middle. That interrupts there. But we do have a delegation this evening to our agenda item J1. So I invite Bronte O'Callahan, Rumaisa Ahmad, and Abdullahi Hussein to speak. And you have 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abdullah, and I will be speaking along with Bronte Vermesa about why these meetings should be paperless. At the current rate of forest destruction, the world's rainforest could completely disappear within 100 years. That's National Geographic. Imagine that. The future will be a lot like the Lorax movie. Trees absorb greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxide, ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and ozone, and then release oxygen, something you might already know. But something you might not know is when trees get cut down, they release the greenhouse gases they once absorbed back into the atmosphere, which contributes to climate change and has negative impacts on everything that lives on Earth. Papers are made from trees, meaning the more paper that gets bought, the more trees get cut down, and the less trees we have to absorb the greenhouse gases. Out of all the paper that we use, only 1/4 gets recycled in Canada, meaning that 3/4 of the paper does not get disposed of properly. Pulp and paper are the third largest industrial polluter of water, air, and soil. Chlorine-based bleaches are used during production, which results in toxic materials being released into our water, air, and soil. When paper rots, it emits methane gas, which is 25 times more toxic than carbon dioxide. Paper accounts for 25% of landfill waste and 33% of municipal waste. 324 liters of water is used to make 1 kilogram of paper. 50% of business waste is composed of paper. Trees are our biggest weapons against climate change. So by making this change, you are helping the planet in countless of ways. I'll now hand it off to Bronte.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Bronte O'Callahan, and today I'll be focusing on ink, which is sold in plastic cartridges for relatively high cost. But there's not only an economic price to pay for printing, there are also environmental costs, as printing is a major contributor to environmental problems. These problems include air pollution, handling and disposing of hazardous materials, waste management, and energy use. Printer ink can be considered hazardous due to the various chemicals they contain, which are harmful to the environment. These chemicals are sometimes considered to be flammable, corrosive, or reactive. Ink is made with a combination of ingredients, including varnish, resin, solvents, pigments, and additives, including waxes and lubricants. Black ink is made using carbon black pigments and white pigments like titanium dioxide, which can be used to lighten other ink colors. Ink and toner cartridges include toxic, volatile, organic compounds, also known as VOCs. These VOCs, along with heavy metals present in ink, can lead to soil and even water pollution. Additionally, ink cartridges are overfilling landfills and adding to environmental pollution. Ink and toner cartridges are made primarily of plastic and resin products and may also contain petroleum oil. Overall, these cartridges take between 600 to 8,000 years to decompose in landfills. In Canada alone, there are 350 million cartridges that end up in the landfill annually. While the cartridges are decomposing, they infect the ecosystem with the chemicals from their plastic and ink. Finally, the production itself of cartridges creates a massive ecological footprint. Cartridges contain oil in the plastic. Manufacturing one laser cartridge requires a gallon of oil, while an inkjet cartridge requires about 2.5 ounces. Over 1.3 billion ink cartridges are manufactured each year. Additionally, a new monotoner cartridge requires 4.8 kilograms in carbon dioxide production. Overall, ink has consequential impacts on the environment. If a district embraces initiatives to lessen the impact it has on the environment in other ways, like reduced energy use, then going paperless should be a part of that discussion. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Today, we ask you not only to step towards a greener school board, but to be leaders of the future. Now I'm going to hand it off to Ramesa.
At the beginning of quarantine, we saw the Earth start to reclaim itself because it was free of human influence. The waters of Venice saw life again, and they were no exception because nature everywhere was at peace. This sounds unrelated, but the lesson from this is that the Earth on its own is unstoppable. Life will always find a way to exist, but that doesn't mean that life will always take the form of us, because humanity is mortal and 100% reliant on the Earth to exist. The Earth does not need us. We need it, and we need to stop taking that for granted, blindly assuming that we will always be all right no matter our actions. While the truth can be overwhelming, we must face it, because if we continue to go around asking the question, why me, and never doing anything, we only hasten an already quickening demise. Because while true that the majority of damage comes from big companies and entire countries, we can take ownership on smaller scales and slowly build a sustainable humanity. Small actions lead to something greater. We are subject to the influences of others, especially those that are in higher positions than us. Something seemingly simple and petty, like a paperless board, is not just a throwaway action, but part of a much larger vision, one where entire schools and eventually districts live sustainably. By taking action to do this, you as trustees are choosing to move forward in a positive direction. Through this and other implementations, schools, teachers, and inevitably students will begin to take action of their own. There is innate beauty at being the start of something. We are well aware that a paperless board is not something inherently easy, but change never is. By powering through your own personal discomfort, you are choosing a much greater victory. Religion says that humans were made from the clay of the earth, while science says that we rolled out of the sea as tiny organisms. Either way, it is from the earth we came, and it is to the earth we will return. And as dramatic as that sounds, the earth is very kindly our home, and it is our fundamental duty to take care of it and our place on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of clarification from trustees? Questions of clarification to our delegation this evening? Seeing none, I thank you very much for joining us. I'll give you a few seconds to exit if you'd like at this time. Thank you very much. Okay, moving through our agenda, we have no one on the speakers list this evening. Correct, okay. So we are at...
Is now exiting.
There we go. We are at L1, our updated policy and regulation PL-02, play space outdoors. Do I have a mover? Moved by Trustee Sipkar, seconded by Trustee Cook. Any discussion on this? Trustee Sipkar?
Sure. I just thought that I would quickly give an overview for trustees. This was a really good discussion that we had at the policy committee over multiple days around this policy and regulation. And I just wanted to point out 1.3 and 1.4 in the regulation. Both were things that were added and discussed, debated at length, specifically around outdoor classrooms. And there was a recognition that that is something that we would like to encourage and support as much as possible, while also realizing the limitations with the funding and even, physical space of certain schools. But I just wanted to point it out because I think that that was a significant change and something that I think our committee was really on board with. I think there was another conversation that I don't think was fully captured that, we discussed what happens when a new school is being built and they're not set up with a play space at all. And there was a conversation around equity, and we weren't able to necessarily nail down that piece within this policy as, again, it relates to ministry funding. But we did add a line in 3.1 that just said that the board will ensure in all new school builds that preliminary preparation of the grading is completed to support a future play space. So the intention was that we want schools to have play spaces and that we would do all that we can to support them with the funding that was available and I guess with our purview. Personally, I would love to see it go further, and I mean that is a piece of advocacy that maybe we can take to the province, but I think I'm really satisfied with the discussion that we had and moving this forward. So I'm just looking for support for trustees tonight, and any of the policy members can speak to it as well, based on the conversation we had.
Thank you, Trustee Halberstadt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to the speaker, I was a bit meandering when I read the wording on these changes, and it addresses the equity issue. what I got out of it, if there's a new school, the board has to provide space for outdoor play or outdoor exercise, but they don't pay for the actual structure. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, but I'll look to administration to speak to the funding pieces that are included with new school builds.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. You're correct, there really isn't ministry funding for these outdoor play spaces. Typically what occurs is principals will work with the school community. Typically the community wants to be involved in the design of those spaces, and they're typically funded through fundraising. So to your point about the equity piece, it does, a lot of it does play into the fact of the fundraising success of an individual school in their community.
To that, some school communities do not have the wherewithal, I don't think, or the money to build those kind of structures. And at this point, it appears that there's nothing that we can do about it. Would that be a correct statement?
Again, through you, Madam Chair, again, it comes back down to funding is a challenge. If there's opportunities where we can support it and encourage it, we certainly will. In some instances, there are some school spaces that just don't naturally lend themselves to outdoor play spaces. We do have some schools that just simply don't have a large footprint surrounded by concrete. So in some cases, it's challenging to do that. But certainly, you know, where we can support it to the best that we can, with the funding that's available to us, we would certainly encourage and do the best we could. But I do acknowledge that there are differences in terms of fundraising abilities within different communities.
So I'll go to Trustee Sipcar and then to Trustee Hatfield. Go ahead, Trustee Sipcar.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that quickly. So you'll note in 1.3, we use the wording, the board will consult with the school community during the school designs, and should funding be available, the provision of outdoor classrooms will be prioritized. So the intention was that while there might not be funding for play spaces, that prioritizing outdoor classrooms could be possible because of, especially in the time of COVID, and that could be a way to kind of bridge some of the outdoor play space, classroom gap. And then in further adding 1.4, we wanted to, firmly say that we encourage and support schools in planning for outdoor classrooms. And so I think the message was loud and clear to administration that this is something that's really important, and in new school builds, it will be prioritized as much as possible within the funding restrictions. So we tried to use language that would direct administration to prioritize that as much as possible.
Trustee Hatfield.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to that as well. So in another lifetime, I worked a lot of bingos to buy playground equipment at more than one of our schools. And I think that things have really changed since then in terms of the opportunities to get funding from other sources other than the school board or bingos, where there are a lot more foundations and charitable organizations that are willing to provide funding assistance with outdoor classrooms, outdoor play space. And I think that it's good if we keep mindful of that, so that that information could be shared with school communities, especially a new build where there might not be anything provided, and it might be a daunting task for some school communities to raise that kind of money, because there isn't equitable opportunity for that across all our schools. But I think it has really changed over the years, that there are other options available for funding. And I think that we should always stay mindful of that and share that information with our school communities.
Thank you very much. Just one second, I just want to see if there's any first questions from any other trustees before I go to Trustee Sipcar. Hearing none, go ahead, Trustee Sipcar.
I was just going to respond to that and saying that's a really good point, Trustee Hatfield, and I think that was, I don't know if it was brought up specifically, but the intention was that to seek out outside community partners as well. And I think you're right about that. And I think that's why strengthening the language around the board will do all that they can to support the initiative was included. So yeah, that was a good point.
Trustee Burgess, did you have a question?
I did add a question and a comment for discussion. I am on policy, and I remember the discussions that we had around the changes. I didn't think they were meandering. If there's wordsmithing suggestions, now's the time. Maybe you could point that out through you, Madam Chair, to anybody who spoke to that. But I wanted to double down on the outdoor classrooms. Outdoor classrooms aren't play spaces necessarily, but we wanted to capture that because there is an opportunity where there is funding for grading the ground prior to construction or additions or any kind of capital projects at schools. Even when full-day kindergartens, for example, were built, the surrounding an enclosed play space or adjacent green space to their enclosed space, that was a consideration at the time, and that's why we wanted to capture that in the regulation. But I would just like to tie in a little bit, if I could, to the previous presentation that we had from the ECO teams at LDSS, in that they really appreciate their outdoor space, and that was something that was in partnership. Previously, a trustee alluded to foundations that sometimes support that, community sponsorships that do support that, but a lot of it can be student hands-on initiatives as well. And I think I really like this revised regulation and policy. The other thing I wanted to say about the haves and have-nots, there was a proposal. It was not successful, but I will just throw it out there again. There was a proposal at one point for those inequities, for fundraising. We've certainly seen it in times of the pandemic, where a lot of those.
Sorry, Trustee Burgess, is this on this motion or on this policy, or could that be brought up at a different time?
Yes, it's the equity piece. It is, ma'am. You could talk about, the 3.1, the grading, how we talk about that, and how equity, the haves and have-nots, and fundraising abilities. The fact is, the question came back, the answer, that fundraising for play spaces often lead to equity problems within schools that don't have the fundraising ability. There's an inequity. But there was a suggestion at one time centrally to us, as a board, to suggest perhaps that a small percentage, 1% or something, of all fundraising activities go into a central fund, and that for extraordinary circumstances where there isn't fundraising, there isn't sponsorship, that schools that have an inability to fundraise successfully can access that. So
Trustee Burgess, with respect, I don't think that's part of this policy, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, the discussion was about equity for funding naturalized spaces, so it does have something to do with the funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any other trustees have questions? No, I will just say, as a member of the policy committee, I was very pleased with this discussion and kind of where this went, and the fact that we added play space outdoors in light of where we are at right now with COVID and where we will be in the future with COVID, and what we just heard from our ECO team. I think this going forward is going to be quite a big discussion piece for our schools, new builds and existing schools, and I'm grateful that our board has done this stewardship toward our environmentalism. So on that, I will call the question. All in support of our regulation, play space outdoors. Thank you very much. And that passes. So moving on to L2, we have a notice of motion from our student trustee Suave, just as a matter of policy. Student trustees cannot put motions on the floor, but can discuss them. So I will need a mover and a seconder to put this motion on the floor this evening. The notice of motion, the recommendation that we have at L2. Do I have a mover for this motion? Trustee Sipcar, do I have a seconder for this motion? I'll second it. Do we have any discussion on this motion? Student trustee Suave and then trustee Leclerc.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to start by kind of giving some background and providing some information about this motion, just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page. So to start, the wording of the motion does say principally provide digital agenda packages, and that is for a reason. I don't want any trustees or student trustees, current or future, to feel like this motion is putting their work in jeopardy, the quality of their work, or that due to a barrier, they aren't able to make this switch. I think that this wording will allow trustees to request paper packages if need be. It was also brought to my attention that trustees do have printers provided at their homes, and they can print there and selectively print the pages they may want to have on hand. If a trustee likes to have, for example, their financial documents, their audit documents with them, they can print those out, write on them, and then file them the way they like to. I think that's a possibility. I don't think I have to go too much in depth with the environmental impact of paper waste. I think our students sum that up beautifully. We have these laptops. They require a large amount of fossil fuels, chemicals to manufacture, and we need them to be successful in our work. Let's use them in the boardroom. Let's put them to use. And I think along with environmental stewardship, this also demonstrates financial stewardship. We have 24 packages from 50 to 100 pages each public session, and that's going to cost about $100 per meeting. So we can minimize that cost, and that's not even taking into account private session agendas, and it would also likely cut down the cost spent preparing them. So I just also want to clarify that there are ways to annotate PDFs. I know that's a concern. How am I going to mark up something digitally? There are ways. I know how to do it on my computer. It may vary, but I think training could be provided, and that would be standardized among all of your laptops. And I know that this may seem like a big change, but boards across the province have been doing it. Toronto Catholic District School Board made the switch. Durham Catholic District School Board has gone paperless as well. And through discussions with their student trustees, it's been a really positive change. Everyone adjusted relatively quickly, and they've had a successful time switching paperless. So I know that learning technology can be intimidating, but I think if this year has taught us anything, it's how to adapt. I know I didn't know what Microsoft Teams was a year ago, but here I am using it every day. So I think I'm confident that we can do this and we can make this switch. And I think making the new default digital agendas is a great way to go. And it's a step in the right direction, not just for our board, but the students making this decision too with their work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Leclerc.
Okay, so I have 2 points. I understand the intent of the motion, and I do support the intent because I do believe when we could reduce the use of paper, it is ideal until such time as our economy decides to use hemp to manufacture paper. Because we could grow as much hemp as we wanted and not have to cut a single tree down and still print lots of paper. Having said that, I guess my concern with the way it's worded, and I understand the principally provide digital agenda, I think that puts some trustees in an awkward position because it needs them to declare that they need a paper copy. And there are trustees, and I know there has been trustees that have a disability and may find it difficult to transfer from a vertical plane to a horizontal plane, as an example, or somebody who may be dyslexic has difficulty transferring from a digital plane to to that horizontal plane, and it's much easier for them to read because they're able to mark it up physically. So I would be more content to support this if, in fact, we put the onus on those that wanted to opt in to an electronic measure as opposed to those that would have to opt out. Because those choosing to opt in are doing so of their own volition. Those that, with the way this is worded, they're opting out, and I think some may feel compelled to disclose a reason why they need to opt out, and that kind of troubles me. The second point is, I don't know that it's fair to say that this would result in a paperless environment. What it will do is it will transfer the labor of the paper printing to the trustees, because some will want, even if they opt out, they're going to print some stuff off. And if you have our printer, you'll know that our printer is much slower than what Madame Leboeuf can perform with her equipment. And having said that, I would gladly opt in for my own reasons, because I'm a gadget guy. I'm good with it. But I just want to protect those that might feel vulnerable. And I don't think we're going to achieve paperless. When the Windsor Police introduced a computer system, we were told we were going paperless. Yeah, I think we print more paper than we ever have, right? So I think it's a bit overstated that we'll be paperless. Well intended, I would say. Your goal here is very well intended. So if we can somehow create that ability for people to opt in as opposed to opt out, I'd love it.
Are you suggesting an amendment?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I amend it, so I'm open to suggestions.
Well, I will come back to you if you want to think on that a bit. As for now, I've got a list of people, but I'll come back to you if you can think of an amendment you'd like to add. Trustee Sartori, and then I've got Trustee Sipkar.
Sure.
Burgess, thank you.
I think Trustee Leclerc makes a good point about opting in or out. I don't see in the motion, though, that we're driving toward a paperless board. Maybe that was mentioned by in the remarks.
Eliminate.
So I agree as well that some trustees may print it. I do have to say that in principle I do support the motion, and I support the intent that it would be more of an opt-out of a paperless. I just wanted to add as well that not only are the packages printed at the board, but they're also driven by motor vehicle to trustees' homes. Some of you may remember that after the election in 2014, when some of us started, and trustees were having a tour of the building, it was actually one of the questions that I had asked back in 2014. So I am supportive. But mostly, I would like to hear from administration, from the director if possible, what kind of impact this would have on administration, on staff, and anything else.
Through you. That's a better question, I think, put to Ms. Leboeuf, but I think that obviously it would make some ease, because they would have to be done electronically, and there wouldn't be the courier service. That being said, there may be some other work that has to occur to make that happen. So, Ms. Leboeuf, can you comment on that? Because I think there would still have to be some other work that you would have to do to make sure that the packages for private, password protected, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. If we are going to be going paperless, then there is a little bit added work in terms of making sure that our private session packages are password protected. Individual emails would have to be sent out and such, but it's not, it wouldn't be anything that would be overly laborsome, so it wouldn't be a problem.
And Trustee Sipkar.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm in support of the entire motion as is, and I'll throw it out there. I won't be supporting an amendment to make the default an opt-in. I think the default should be digital. I think we're at a point both with the environmental crisis that we're at, and also in a time of COVID where I don't think it's necessary, and I think that it doesn't have to be declared publicly if a trustee wants printed copies and that's their preference. There is no judgment there. I attend classes. I actually print some of my reading material because I prefer to have, my own copies. But that's my choice, and I choose it selectively. And I might do so with some of my agendas. But I think that's why, as trustees, we are entitled to have, our printers, things like that. And I think to be good, models and to be, and with the current technology that we have available, I think the default should be digital, and we should be encouraging that. And then if there are other reasons why people want to print, they are more than welcome to do so. We have printers, and so I'll be supporting the motion in full.
Thank you. Trustee Burgess.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question through you, if I could, Madam Chair, to administration. But I will be supporting the motion as is, without amendment. I think that we do have to lead and we do have to go paperless. I would like to publicly declare that I will probably opt in for a paper copy, and rather than make it theoretical and who are these people, privacy must be maintained, and I think that there should be no stigma and no judgment, etc. But my learning, the way I learn visually, the way I annotate on paper is different than when I annotate digitally. The way I can stop and start, I have far too much screen time as it is. I appreciate the time where I can go outside, not within Wi-Fi range, and tackle documents. But the question I have for administration is, do we have a policy in our procurement policy, for example, in our ethical stewardship, to use 100% post-consumer use paper? I ask this question because in the presentation, the assumption in some case was that we have poor recycling percentages, and that our default would be to use virgin paper from forests, from trees, and you don't have to use trees anymore. You can recycle the paper that's already present in the planet. So do we have a policy where we weigh heavily that we use 100% post-consumer use paper in our paper products?
It's Director Kelly. Through you, Madam Chair, I don't believe that we do have such a policy.
Is that cost-driven, supplemental?
Sorry, can you clarify that question? Is it cost-driven? Meaning, is the reason that we don't have that we don't procure that sort of paper, is it driven by a higher cost? Is that the question?
Yes. My question would be that the choice to not you look at our ethical stewardship, our strategic plan, how we operationalize it. One of the things we can do is use 100% post-consumer use. Now, if it has a higher cost, do we make that choice because the RFP comes in, or whatever our choice? Not the RFP, but whatever the procurement decision is based on lowest cost, rather than for slightly higher cost we could get completely recycled paper.
Thank you. I'll put that through to administration.
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm not 100% positive, so I'll start off with that. So I need to go back and check with our procurement staff. There's an initiative and effort to put in green clauses in a lot of contracts that we do put in place with our suppliers and with individuals that we are contracting business with. So that is an initiative that we are undertaking. It also ties into our Single-Use Plastics Reduction Committee initiative. So I know that that's something that we are incorporating, but I'd need to go back specifically to follow up on the post-consumer paper. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Oh, Trustee Cook.
If I could,
that was supplemental, but I can put you on for a second question if you would like.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cook.
Hi, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering, what would the cost be for this? Would there be different programs that we'd have to have, and what would the timeline be, approximately?
It's Director Hill. If I could answer that question, I believe there is nothing significantly different. This is something that could be managed simply by it being sent and viewed. If there were a need to annotate, I think one of the student trustees mentioned there are ways you could put it in OneNote, for example. So there would be no, as I see it, no real additional training, or I know I'm on another board and they have a whole management platform that does that, and I don't think that would be necessary. So am I correct, Ms. LeBeau? Yeah.
Supplemental?
No, I was just going to, and what would the timeline, would this be something that we could do fairly quickly?
I believe it would be something that could happen quickly.
Do I have any other first questions? Trustee Chin.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the intention of the motion, and as I appreciate especially for Trustee Leclerc, and I think he is more understanding. And personally, I prefer the paper copy because I have language issue, and sometimes it's difficult for me to figure out what files that we need in this meeting because sometimes they come out separately. And also when we print this at home, our printer is small printer, black color, and I think I don't think, I just worry that it might affect my quality of work. And I think that's more important for me. And especially when I translate something, I need my dictionary and translate and mark it right on the paper. That's more easier for me. So I think if we have to pass this motion, I think Trustee Leclerc's comment should be taken care of. Thank you.
Do I have any other first questions? Trustee Halberstam.
Yeah, I guess I got a question and some comments, so is that okay? Yeah, it's okay.
Let's start with your question.
Well, yeah, I guess my question is if this motion goes through as it's written here, what would the repercussions be, say, if, like I don't agree with the motion. I agree with reducing it, paper, as much as possible. I already engage in those practices with a shredder, and it goes into the compost at home. My wife and I are very diligent in, we'll get it 11 by 8 and we'll knock it down, put it in the desk and bring it out, so we're not reusing it. We are reusing it. But anyway, my question, I guess, is if this motion passes and I want printed copies, say, of the long-term accommodation plan or our budget, if I can get it as is, because I find, I guess I'm like Linda and maybe a bit like Ron, is I try to reduce my screen time. My eyes are not what they used to be. I'm not afraid to admit that. And I'm a newspaper man all my life, so you can see where I might be coming from. But I make notes. If you go through my package tonight, there's a lot of places where I make notes that trigger maybe a question or an understanding. So to me, it would reduce my effectiveness, I believe, and comfort with what I've been doing pretty well all my life. And so I would hate somebody to say, okay, Trustee Halberstadt, this is eliminated. You can't have any printed copy from the school board. I think that might actually be a human rights thing. So I guess that's the question. What do you mean by eliminate? Does that mean that a trustee cannot receive printed copies, or get the copies delivered to his or her door? I'd compromise there. I'd drive down and get it if you don't want to save a few. You want to save a few cents on.
I'll deliver them to you.
Okay, sure. No, I don't mind coming down and picking them up, but I just wonder what is the connotation of this.
So I want us to be very clear what's actually in the recommendation. It is to principally provide digital agendas and in an effort to eliminate. So we're not saying that we're eliminating paper. I've heard that referred to a few times. I want to be very clear that we're not saying that we're eliminating the paper use of them, and we're saying that we are principally. So the wording of the motion does capture those sorts of questions. I know that the word eliminate is maybe capturing some people's attention, but it's in an effort to eliminate. So we're not saying that it's the elimination of paper in this. So I just wanted to clarify on that. Alan, did you have a question, or is that the statement?
Yeah, well, that was the question is, what does it mean? Eliminate, and principally, I'm still not sure what that means.
In an effort to eliminate.
Means in principle.
So, Trustee Burgess, I will get to you, but we do have an amendment that is being proposed. Trustee Leclerc, go ahead, and then I'll go to you, Trustee Burgess.
So I would propose that the amendment would be, we would strike the word principally, and we would substitute, after the word GECDSB, the opportunity for trustees to opt in to receiving digital agenda packages, and the same from there. So we're going to drop principally and provide. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't change. Yep. So we're going to drop principally and provide, which comes after the GECDSB, and add in the opportunity for trustees to opt in to receiving digital agenda packages. Oh, and then it doesn't work here. Yeah.
Point of clarification. Am I technically the mover, even though that Trustee Suave proposed it?
Yes, you are the mover.
Okay. Am I allowed to, and it's just my knowledge, am I allowed to say that that amendment I think changes the intent?
You can speak to that on the amendment, but the amendment hits the floor as soon as it has a seconder. So is that the amendment? Do we have an amendment?
Please.
Can you turn your mic on?
Sorry. That the Greater Essex County District School Board provide the opportunity for trustees to opt in to receive a digital package, and then you're going to take out trustees and student trustees. So I guess it would be trustees and student trustees in my portion. For board meetings, committee meetings, and any special meetings starting April 20th, blah, blah, blah. In support of the GECDSB strategic priority of ethical stewardship agendas for board meetings. Period. So agendas for board meetings should be delivered digitally. So that last sentence has to come out. So,
sorry, I'm trying to clarify here so we can know what we're voting on.
Yep.
So what I have, that the GECDSB provide the opportunity for trustees and student trustees to opt into receiving a digital package for board meetings, committee meetings, and any special meetings, starting with the April 20th, 2021 board meeting, in an effort to eliminate the printing and distribution of paper agenda packages in recognition of the environmental impact of paper, ink, and delivery costs, and in support of the GECDSB strategic priority of ethical stewardship.
yes.
That amendment is on the floor. It's been seconded by Trustee Hatfield. Any discussion on that amendment?
On the amendment?
Trustee Hatfield.
Thanks. I wanted to speak before we got to that point, but anyway, I'm going to try and wrap it all into one. I don't feel confident about the comments that were made that there would be no stigma and no judgment for those who don't accept a digital package. I feel that there could be stigma and judgment attached to that. So I'm very uncomfortable with a blanket statement that says there would be no stigma and no judgment. I think it should be our prerogative to opt in if that's what would make us efficient in our work as a trustee. And I find it difficult to support a blanket theme that we should all adapt, we should all become familiar with how to do it 100% digitally. I mean, I had a problem today where a report was sent to me and my computer, which laptop from the board, didn't have the capacity to open the report. So I was stuck. If I needed to print it myself, and it was the color in this report was significant because it was the strategic planning, where all these colors were significant. Well, I don't have the ability to print that. And because it was such a complicated report, it probably would have taken me an hour to try and print it. So I just think that for me, that's not efficient use of my time. And if I want to be doing things, like, I don't know how to put this. We make all kinds of accommodations for students to help them learn in the best way possible, to help them do their tasks in a way that is best for them. We pride ourselves in that. And here you're telling me as a trustee that I can't work in the way that's best suited for me without making me have to either admit that I have some kind of disability that prevents me from doing it, to admit that I need some kind of training that prevents me from doing it. I'm 100% committing to reducing, reusing, and recycling everything that goes through my home, that goes through my board package. And I don't want to be stigmatized. I want to be able to do my board work in the best way possible for me. And so I would appreciate support for the amendment so that if the digital option is best for me, I can opt in. And I think that's the way it should be, not that we opt out and then, have this mark on our forehead that we couldn't adapt. And I think there are a lot of reasons, like Trustee Ching mentioned, Trustee Leclerc gave some examples, and I think that, we need to be consistent to what we're saying as educators in terms of what we do for our students, to provide them with the best tools available for them to be successful. But here you're telling me, no, you're not going to give me what's best for me. And I have a problem with that. I have a problem with, by the original motion principally, if I can't principally adjust to this digital agenda, then I'm going to be stigmatized, and that's how I feel. But if I choose to opt in, then I personally feel better about having some control over that choice. And so I guess I'm also speaking to the motion or the amendment, and I would support it because I think it has the dignity that I deserve. The end. That's my speech.
Trustee Leclerc, can I get your mic off? Sorry, no. So on the amendment, I have Trustee Burgess and Trustee Sipkar on the amendment. Trustee Burgess.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not supportive of the amendment, but I would like to be understood why I'm not supportive of the amendment. And it's how I read the original motion and the intent of the original motion as I see it, and what the default is, what the opportunities are, and then the discussion that we had about training, et cetera, to support either status quo or changing, opting in, or going with the default. This isn't question period. It is meant for discussion, so it's not just questions. I did want to discuss it. So the amendment, as I see it, provide the opportunity for trustees and student trustees to opt in. I think that's where it stops for board meetings, et cetera, for a paper copy. If you just look at the regular motion, the default is to go to electronic only, digital only, and the intent is to reduce paper, the products associated with the printing, the labor associated with the printing and distribution. I'm totally on board with that. I think that I said that before. That should be the default. I see that as the default. I also want to say that there should never be any stigma. There should never be any judgment. We've already stated there should be no stigma. There should be no judgment. I think, others have stated that there's a possibility of that. There should never be that. I think that we can do this without stigmatizing. It's like any accommodation for special education, special learning, personal choice, the way we learn best and use our time efficiently. as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to probably opt in a lot of times, particularly for board meetings, to have a paper copy supplied. I like the motion as it is. I think it takes care of all of that with dignity because we do operate without stigmatizing. I also want to say that, we had a motion, and I wasn't able to research when it came out. We did have a motion. It was brought forward by Trustee Helga Bailey at the time, so that would be prior to 2014. It was for paperless packages. I don't believe it disappeared from our books. I thought our default was that we always had the option. We always had, a digital. So the opportunity for trustees and student trustees to get a paper project package is still always there. It's a simple, send them all to me, please, and I require it. Don't have to give reasons. This also gives a recognition that e-copies would be better for all the reasons that's stated in the motion. So I think we're covered. So I'm not going to support the amendment as it is because I think that it's redundant, actually. I think it's inclusive in the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Burgess. Trustees, I don't want to limit our democratic discussion here, but I do want to limit the time that we're spending. Right now, we're just on the amendment, and we're getting into. I recognize that everyone has a piece that they would like to say. I am not going to be asking for second questions on the amendment, and I would like us to please get our comments down to a reasonable length. I don't want to limit discussion here, but I do want to recognize that there's quite a bit of time that we're spending on this, and I want us to be clear and concise, please and thank you. So I do have Trustee Sipcar, Trustee Leclerc, Trustee Hatfield, and then I'm going to call after Trustee Hatfield, I'm going to call the question on the amendment, and we can go to the regular motion. I'm sorry, there has to be a line at which I fall, and so I appreciate your following me along with this. So Trustee Sipcar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will try to be succinct and just echo a lot of Trustee Burgess's comments. My sole comment will be, I think that this changes the intent of the motion. And I do think that all of the concerns that other trustees are expressing, some of which I'm very empathetic to, I think can be addressed by the simple, by the motion, in that it's not saying that it is only digital. It is saying that it is the default, and I think that is the direction that our board should be going in. And I think that the amendment changes that intent too much, and so I will not be supporting it.
Trustee Leclerc on the amendment.
Yeah, so I've raised it as a question regarding a disability, and others have also indicated that there may be related to a disability and or an ethnic basis, both of which are protected grounds under the Ontario Human Rights Code. I think this board has a duty and an obligation to ensure that we do not adversely make decisions that affect individuals with disabilities. And I think the way it's worded with principally, and you're putting the person that has the disability into a position of having to make an action to opt out, puts them at an unfair position. It's protected ground. I think that opting in on behalf of the trustees removes that concern under the Ontario Human Rights Code. And that's why I believe that my amendment is imperative, because I think it's challengeable under the Human Rights Code, the way it's written. I do not believe it changes the intent, because the intent is that for those trustees that wish to have a digital agenda in an attempt to reduce paper agendas, will do so. And we're not left with anybody with a disability having to ask for an accommodation. That's what we're doing. We're putting the ownership onto the person with a disability. So the way it's written without the amendment puts that onto the person with the disability.
Thank you. And I have, so Trustee Hatfield, you have spoken on the amendment. I do have you on the list, but I would prefer if we could keep it very quick so that we can move on to the, are you?
Okay, the one thing that I didn't touch on that I think is important is, and I agree with what Trustee Leclerc just said, if you go back to the original motion, if you don't support the amendment and you go back to the original motion, trustees have focused on the fact that up above it says principally, but down below it ends with agendas for board meetings should be delivered digitally. It's not giving the option. And that's a problem. That's a problem for me, and it contradicts the principally above. But I think that the amendment gives us that fairness of opting in if that's the way that we prefer to do our work, like I said before. And I think that trustees have missed the ending of the motion that says agendas for board meetings should be delivered digitally. That's pretty definitive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am going to call the question on the amendment. I will read it just so we are clear about what we're voting on here. So the amendment is that the GECDSB provide the opportunity for trustees and student trustees to opt into receiving a digital agenda package for board meetings, committee meetings, and any special meetings starting with the April 20th, 2021 board meeting, in an effort to eliminate the printing and distribution of paper agenda packages in recognition of the environmental impact of paper, ink, and delivery costs, and in support of the GECDSB strategic priority of ethical stewardship. On that, all in support. We have 4 in support, 5 in support. Trustee Burgess, did you support?
I asked for a recorded vote, but I am opposed.
Sorry, we've already voted, unfortunately. So I've got 5 in support. That passes. No, it does not pass. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I'm opposed, so I'm not in support. So that the amendment passes. So what we have on the floor as the motion to be voted on is that the GECDSB provide the opportunity for trustees and student trustees to opt in to receive a digital agenda package for board meetings, committee meetings, and any special meetings, blah, 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 for the GECDSB strategic priority of ethical stewardship. Any last comments on this particular student trustee Younger?
Yeah, so I support the motion. I just want to extend again on equity and accessibility. I'm thinking especially of student trustees here and kind of bringing myself into this. Because opting in, I think there are probably students, trustees, maybe in the future that would want to opt in, that don't want to print and don't want to have the the courier bring their package out, but don't have the means to bring a digital agenda to a physical meeting. And I myself am included in this. I've been wanting to opt into digital agendas for a while, but I don't have myself a device that I could bring to a meeting, so I can't. And so for the rest of the year, I'd have to make it work, which I'd love to do. I'm more than happy to do. But I'm thinking of student trustees, and I'm thinking of maybe students that don't have a device. I'm assuming many adults do. But if student trustees would like to not print, which I think many would, they have to be supported in that decision, and they have to be given equal access to resources that would enable them to bring a digital agenda to a meeting. And I think that's something that has to just be thought about, not just for myself, but for future student trustees in case that is the situation. Just to comment on that motion.
Thank you very much. Any other?
On that?
Trustee Burgess, I'm going to allow you to comment. I'm going to make a final comment, and then I'm going to call the question. So Trustee Burgess, go ahead.
Recorded vote, please, ma'am.
Recorded vote, you asked?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much. I will get a recorded vote. So I will make a final comment. I can appreciate the conversation that we had, and I'm grateful to trustees for bringing those concerns forward and speaking on behalf of perhaps themselves, perhaps their colleagues, perhaps their future colleagues they've not met. I'm grateful for that discussion. And as you may have noticed, I push quite a bit in this boardroom for accessibility, and I believe in it. There are options that allow for accessible digital documents. I heard some of the comments tonight about asking us to do our work in a new way, and us not being able to do our work in a new way effectively. Except it leads me to think that we've asked our students and our educators to shift rapidly to new ways of doing their own schooling, their own work. And we have praised them in this room about doing that effectively, quickly, using technology, with support that we're going to talk about in a few minutes in a report. Some of them are having to do that on their own. Some parents are sitting at home with English as a second language, trying to navigate their way through some of the technology that we've asked them to use. And I don't think it's too untoward to ask us to adjust to a technology for our board meeting packages and do our work in that way. We just have gone through, I will say we've just gone through beginning our strategic planning exercises, and we talked a lot in this room as a group about our environmental stewardship. And we've doubled down a bit on our environmental stewardship, and I'm glad that we did. We've heard lots of things tonight about environmental stewardship and how that's affecting our students, and how that's affecting the larger capacity of people. And I think that doing this is maybe a small piece for us to adjust to, and gives the not only the impression but the leadership that we're able to adjust. We are allowing for accommodations to be made. We are allowing for people to adjust to the ways that they like to do things, the ways that they need to do things. We ask our students and our educators to do that all the time. We ask people in our lives to do that all the time. Companies ask us to do it all the time. And I think I'm in support. I was in support of the original, I'm in support of this one, and I'm definitely in support of digital packages, and I will be 100% an opt-in, even if I have to sometimes write things on a yield legal pad and bring them in, because I am a person who likes to tactile write things down. So on that, I will call the question as a recorded vote, please. So I will go around the room. Trustee Sartori on the motion.
Support.
Trustee Sipkar.
Support.
Trustee Halberstadt.
Opposed.
We're voting, the amendment is the original. We voted on the amendment. The amendment is the original motion now. Yes. Yes. Trustee Cook?
Could you read it? I know I'm a little confused what I just voted for. Against.
So, okay, so this will be the third time I'm reading it. The amendment that passed is the motion that we are voting on. So the motion, the recommendation that we are voting on is that the GECDSB provide the opportunity for trustees and student trustees to opt in to receive a digital package for board meetings, committee meetings, and any special meetings starting with the April 20th, 2021 board meeting, in an effort to eliminate the printing and distribution of paper agenda packages, in recognition of the environmental impact of paper, ink, and delivery costs, and in support of the GECDSB strategic priority of ethical stewardship. So I will ask one more time, just because I want to be very clear on what we're voting on. Trustee Sartori on the motion.
Still supporting.
Thank you. Trustee Sipkar.
Also supporting.
Trustee Halberstadt.
Opposed.
Trustee Cook. He's allowed to vote the way that he chooses. Trustee Cook.
I support.
Trustee Cheen. Can you turn your mic on?
Sorry. Support.
Thank you. Trustee Hatfield.
Support.
Trustee Leclerc.
Support.
Trustee Burgess.
Support.
And I am in support as well. And that passes. Thank you very much. So we're moving through our agenda now to reports to be received. The report of the Director of Education. Go ahead, Director Kelly.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm waiting for Ms. LaBeouf there for the report. Go ahead. All right, March is always an interesting month, and we usually get a break. But this year we've had the chance to enjoy all different kinds of days here, like snow days. This may be a distant memory, but it was actually 3 weeks ago that was taken. Of course, the change of seasons is one of the great things about March, and that's given students at Parkview a chance to clean things up a bit. There's a day this month to promote bullying awareness and prevention in our communities. And at Gore Hill, students acknowledge the day by wearing pink shirts. The students and staff at Giles campus never run out of fun days, like ones for crazy hair or crazy hats. March Madness is a real thing at McWilliam Public School, and at Colchester North, they celebrated We All Belong Day. Of course, 3.14 is Pi Day, a favorite among math teachers. Sweater Day was this month, when we wore an extra layer to school and work and turned down the thermostat a couple of degrees. There was also Down Syndrome Awareness Day, where we wore our loudest socks. And St. Patrick's Day was well celebrated across our board. Even the virtual students got into the spirit. And when they ran out of other days at Herman Academy, they enjoyed Western Day. But whatever the date, every day is a great day for learning at the Greater Essex County District School Board.
Thank you very much, Director Kelly. Any questions for the director on her report? Trustee Hatfield.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. My question, and I've been thinking about this for a while, with all this COVID going on and isolation and social distancing and all of that and everything that goes along with it, I wanted to know if administrators are actually going into the schools, or like these pictures, are they just submitted by the schools? Like, I don't know how much time is being spent in schools anymore by our administration.
By senior administration, you're asking? Yeah, we are very much limiting the amount that we go into schools, obviously in respect of COVID and having visitors to buildings. Many of these pictures, I'm just thinking of the Gore Hill, the principal there sends us pictures regularly, so many of these are sent in to our communications and public relations officer.
Thank you. And I asked that question because, that has come back to me, that in all of this time, they don't see senior admin anymore in the buildings, and it's concerning that there's no firsthand look at what's happening in our classrooms. And I, even though I understand the difficulties of COVID, and we come to our board meetings, so I don't know that there isn't a way that administration could have more of a presence in our schools from time to time.
I think certainly at certain times we've been very limited to that, and certainly there are visits, but they are limited out of respect because of some of the situations and outbreaks that we have had. But your point's well taken.
Any other questions from trustees for the director? Seeing and hearing none, thank you very much. We'll move through to the report of the Offsp director. We do have, Trustee Burgess has sent around a digital copy to our emails of the report, but I'll ask Trustee Burgess if there's anything she'd like to add to that.
No, there's not a lot that I'm going to add to that, Madam Chair. You'll see that I do highlight in my report that a lot of what I share at the board meeting is already existing on the offsp.org website. There are, of course, individual notes that I could pick up and talk about what happened at regional meetings or in particular meetings, and I'm open to answers on any questions you may have. I was going to highlight that we had this Thursday, March 25th, arranged as the second Thursday, every second Thursday from February to May, we have online professional development. However, at 5:11 this afternoon, an email came and said that, with no irony, with a nod to some irony, that March 25th PD on planning in a time of crisis, a session on strategic planning and engagement during COVID-19, has been had to be rescheduled because of unforeseen circumstances. And of course, that's the story of planning during COVID-19, isn't it? Unforeseen circumstances. But it will help us in, as we take our steps to consultation and further messaging to fulfill our duties regarding adopting a renewed multi-year plan. I also included the schedule of things that are coming up, and what OFSPA does keeps us abreast of the legislative update and the bills that we are working on, making submissions on. I do want to draw attention to an imminent deadline of April 1st and April 14th. April 1st, there's a call for nomination for awards. Our student trustees earlier this evening talked about OSTA-ACO associated and other awards. OSPA has a few awards, and they are aimed for students, retired trustees, 25-year service, active or retired educators, as well as an award for outstanding contributions of non-teaching staff, parent volunteers, and community partners involved in education and member boards. And I would like to, in the next week, to hear of some submissions that we could put together to OFSPA. I know that at Greater Essex we have some local champions, and I'd love to hear about some of their names and work on a submission for OFSPA. That deadline is April 1st. On a personal note, I did attend Western Regional meeting on February 20th and the OFSPA Board of Directors February 27th, and policy development meetings and the PD sessions that I mentioned earlier, and as did some of our SOs. That was nice to see, and some trustee colleagues. So reports on those have been also posted via offspa.org. So I really suggest you take a look at those summaries. And as always, I'm open to questions. Again, suggestions for those award submissions. Any AGM resolutions have to be done by April 14th. If there's something that's going forward to our virtual AGM in June, we should identify those. And if there's any emerging issues, I heard one tonight about, I think it was in place spaces area there. Any suggestions to bring forward to the OFSPA board table? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Trustee Burgess. Any questions for our OFSPA director? Thank you very much. On to the chair's report. I don't have much to report. I did attend one of the PD sessions that Trustee Burgess was referring to, our intensive human rights training offered by OFSPA. I attended last night. It was quite enlightening, and I deeply appreciated it as we go through work on our board's behalf toward anti-racism, and that is kind of my chair's report for this evening. Trustee question period. Oh, I skipped right over it because I crossed it over in my thing. I'm sorry. I just was like jumping right ahead, just like this. Sorry, guys. Let me go back to M3, meeting staff needs report. Do we have somebody from administration who's speaking to this before trustee questions, or jumping right into trustee questions? Any questions from trustees on the report in front of us for meeting staff needs? Questions, Trustee Hatfield?
I did send some questions in earlier, so thank you to admin for responding. I'm the one who made the motion for the report, so I'm not going to go through all my individual questions because I can send them. I do have more than what I sent in today, but I can send them in to staff. But the motion was very specific about the focus of the report to identify staff needs and determine if we are responding effectively. And I guess there wasn't enough time really for admin to be able to determine that. And so for me, the report isn't complete. And I still have concerns. The problem is that the concerns that I hear are anecdotal, and but they're very concerning. They're very concerning that staff is overwhelmed, staff is not feeling supported, and even media reports about education workers confirm all the anecdotal stuff that I'm hearing. So I think that admin needs to go to the next step, and I think that is the last page of the report, page 9 of the report, page 30 of our package, where there is a list of 7 considerations or actions to be undertaken. And I think that's the savior of the whole report, and that we need to move forward with these, I'm going to call them recommendations. So I would like to make a motion that administration move forward with the 7 considerations, actions listed in the report. And once those surveys, et cetera, are completed, then they would bring back a final report.
Support for that.
So is there so I have a seconder for that motion. Thank you very much. Would you like to speak to the motion, Trustee Hatfield?
Just quickly, I think that if we reach out to our staff through senior admin with the questions and the surveys that are suggested in these considerations, I think that will be a huge step in showing our staff that we are concerned, that we want to know how they're doing. Even though the report provides a lot of data, there's still some disturbing things here, like that staff were reporting that their physical health was declining, and I don't know how we're helping them. Personal relationships have been fragile as staff cope with balancing working from home, school, and managing childcare or elder care responsibilities. Individuals are acknowledging a pattern of unhealthy coping habits, such as drinking more alcohol, gaming, and not getting an appropriate amount of sleep. There are serious concerns listed in this report, and I think we need to reach out to find out if our staff is coping well. I mean, just something as basic like life-work balance, because that's something that most of the population is missing right now. They don't have the luxury of that life-work balance. You know, people, parents are now educating their kids at home. Parents have to take on those added responsibilities. And some of those parents are our staff members. So I think that we really need to reach out and understand whether or not, as the focus was supposed to be of the report, whether or not we have identified all the staff needs and whether or not we are responding effectively. I think that as an employer, we have that obligation. I think that we've had a tremendous focus on students and has been very successful in addressing those concerns. But I think the staff have been left out to a large extent, and it's very unsettling to hear the kind of stories that I'm hearing from the classrooms. And I just think that we would get a better report if those 7 steps were undertaken by administration. So I hope that trustees would support that motion.
On the motion, trustees, do we have questions or comments on the motion?
Comment, Burgess?
Go ahead, Trustee Burgess.
I'm glad this came forward as a motion and not just a consideration, that it's a motion for action. Thank you, Trustee Hatfield, for putting it on the floor. I support it because I too was not surprised, but found the information disturbing, and sharing disturbing information is always a delicate thing. You don't want to show the soft underbelly, but the fact is we've been living under extraordinary times. We all know that. We've all felt it. I think it's every bit of our staff, from bus drivers to senior administration, parents who are learning, parents who are teachers and learning at the same time. So I think that the stats kind of speak for themselves. I think the situation that has been declared speaks for itself. I also think that not everybody feels comfortable sharing their thoughts, and they're often hesitant to share their fragility. So I'm not sure that there's still a lot of undisclosed malaise that's going, right now. My question was going to be earlier in the director's report was how everybody's taking the lack of not March break. I know that usually we had a concern for many years that the Friday of March break, sometimes the Thursday, Friday before March break, was so low attendance to, the enrollment those days would be compromised because people would be off, staff and students. And we worked really hard so that we would have every learner every day. But without March break, I think the level of burnout and pandemic fatigue is real. So I think this motion is really timely, urgent, and I would hope that my colleagues support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Burgess. Questions or comments on the motion? I am in support of this motion, and I want to thank Trustee Hatfield for, again, it's great to see that administration has considered these actions. It's nice to see that that they see work that still needs to be done, and I think putting action to it is excellent. I want to acknowledge that we've had some discussions recently about how resource-rich this board is and how we're a learning organization, and I want to just acknowledge in this report the staggering number of workshops and resources and videos and development sessions that have been offered and that have been developed by our staff and upheld by our staff. It's no easy task to deliver any of those, to develop those, to keep those updated, and to respond to staff, to parent, to student need. And I think in the actions and considerations that we currently have in front of us that we are voting on now, I think the efforts that we have seen so far and that are reflected in here speak to the kinds of information that I'm hoping that we'll get back in this follow-up actions and report. The dedication that I see in those, that I know our board does have that capability and that drive to do so, and I'm grateful for that, and also grateful that we're going to be considering these additional things moving forward. So I will be in support of that motion. So I will call the question on, do we need the motion read again? I didn't write it down, so I'm going to call on Trustee Hatfield to.
Just that administration move forward with the 7 considerations actions on page 9 of the report, page 30 of the board package, and provide a report back to trustees.
Thank you very much. On that motion, all in support?
Burgess.
Trustee Burgess, thank you very much, and that passes. Much appreciated. I won't go through my chair's report again. You've already heard it. We're at trustee question period. Right on time, y'all. Trustee Cook, and then I have Trustee Sipcar and Trustee Sartori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is to Director Kelly. It's a question/request that myself and Trustee Higgison meet with senior administration regarding the student trustee process to review and change the process, including adding professional development for student trustees. I believe that the process needs to be more equitable to all students, and I believe that there's many, many different ways to encourage and motivate other students to get involved. So I'm just asking if we could do that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd be glad to do that. I also think the policy does need a review. It is not quite in keeping with ministry direction, and I think it is timely to have a look at that. I'd be glad to assist with that.
Thank you very much. Trustee Sipcar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to administration, I have a question of if there is an update regarding vaccinations for our education workers, our staff, and our board. I've seen, our union partners calling out for this. There's been other boards who are asking the same questions, and so I'm just wondering if the health unit has given any indication if our staff will be prioritized.
Thank you. I think that's a really good question, and I know that trustees are concerned with that as I am. And Superintendent, if I can add to this, but I believe we haven't received any indication of a particular date. Are you correct about certainly Niagara and I believe Guelph area have received vaccinations for their teaching staff a little bit ahead, especially in Niagara they had their special education staff, I believe, have all been. So we will advocate for that. We haven't received any particular dates, but I think we all would agree that it's an important move that would really assist comfort for families, but it would also assist staff in feeling, a little bit more safe in schools. And they are safe, but I mean, this would be something that would be excellent if we could get some pressure on that.
Is there a supplemental?
I do have a supplemental. So with that, I'm just wondering, we have on page 31 of our agenda, a letter to Premier Ford regarding this issue. I'm wondering if I could get consensus from trustees to maybe write another letter that we would ask again. And I've seen recently another board, it's probably TDSB, if that's the one that's coming to mind, requesting that these vaccinations take place over March break. I'm just wondering if that is something that we could maybe write a letter on, and also to our health unit as well to communicate this as our desire, whether it's that week or as soon as possible.
So are we looking to do that letter by consensus? I will say that we have had some discussion informally from trustees that the letters by consensus are not preferred, that if we're going to do something that we do it by motion, but if we are okay with doing something like that by consensus, then I'm okay with keeping current practice as it is. Is that what we're suggesting, that we would like to develop a letter to that regard, a follow-up letter to what we currently have in our package, and include our public health unit?
Yes, I think this letter went directly to the government with CCing all of our MPPs, and I just think that maybe it can request some specific timelines, a little bit more information, and also direct that to our health unit as well. I know that they are our partners, and I in no way is it meant to be attacking or combative. It's just saying this is where we're at, and the trustees would like support in this advocacy.
So just from a chair's perspective, we met with superintendent and the director, and I met with some of our union partners, and I've reached out to the chair of the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit, asking about whether they have any communication updates for us, or whether our current local vaccinations are in keeping with what we currently have in the province. I did hear back from Teresa Marantet, and she has forwarded the province's phase 2 prioritization, and education workers are in that current prioritization. I have requested clarity on the timelines for that, but haven't heard back yet. And so I don't know if the letter would be in addition to that, or would include some of that information that has been requested of them currently. And we're just awaiting some of that information on when locally we would be entering our phase 2, and whether we're in keeping with some of the timelines that are mentioned in that report. So are we looking to include that information as well, and copy to both of them?
Yes. Yep.
Trustee Hatfield.
Can you just clarify? Did you confirm that our education workers are in phase 2?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, they are in phase. Yes. So I have the thing right here. They are elementary and secondary school workers, including educators, custodial, school bus drivers, and administrative staff, are in secondary priority in phase 2, per the province.
Okay. But I was going to suggest that with regard to the letter, I think that there's some additional ammunition that we could use, in that, there were only 3 centers across the province that were just announced where they could move up the vaccination to everybody 60 and over, and we were one of them, and there was a good reason for that. And I think that that gives us some added ammunition or fuel to say that our community needs to get these education workers into the group as soon as possible. You know, we weren't just picked by lottery. We were picked because there was a need in this community. And also, I think the other thing that we should be looking at is the number of high-risk exposures that are reported daily from our schools. That makes people nervous. It makes staff nervous. It makes parents nervous. And I don't think we've had a day go by where we haven't had a notification or 2 or 3. And I think all that should be mentioned in the letter if we're going to do it. I mean, I'm okay with consensus, and I think we should be advocating loudly.
Okay, so do we have consensus to send a follow-up letter to the Premier, including that information, and also copy to our local public health unit? Are we copying it to the same group that our current letter is copied to? It's sent to the Premier, copied to Minister Elliott, Minister Lecce, and all of our MPPs.
Question for clarification, Burgess.
Go ahead.
On that, because this is by consensus, so I want to make sure. Thank you to the previous speakers, too. There's a political part of this, and I heard that we're going to copy again to our political partners that are now found on the bottom of the page that we already sent. In the letter that we already sent via email, we mentioned that we understand Phase 2 will be including. We're asking the Premier to honor his government's commitment to include education workers in Phase 2 of the vaccination plan. So I'm trying to discern what the difference is. And I think what I hear is, and I agree with, what we should be doing is sending it not only to our political, but also the CEO of the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit, as well as directly a copy to the Medical Officer of Health. Because the medical officers of health also convene amongst themselves and speak with the vaccine task force and the ethical, whatever the title of that is. I think whatever that group is that determines the prioritization, the vaccine, I don't know, task force for ethical, whatever it is, I think we need to send it there, too, because of our unique position of being not only opportunities for asymptomatic testing, but for vaccination via pharmacies, etc. The need is there. We were chosen because of our epidemiology. So I think that we need to also have the medical officers of health or that task force in who we send it to.
Thank you, Trustee Burgess.
Does the chair of the WECHU ever get a copy?
Yes, I believe they're copied as well. We can make sure that the chair of the board and is copied as well. Trustee Sipcard, did you have a question?
I just want to echo Trustee Burgess and Trustee Hatfield in emphasizing the need to prioritize. And also, I think the other point that I was trying to make was asking about a timeline. And so it's comforting to know that our education workers are included in Phase 2, but I think what I was looking for is a little bit more direct and asking for that timeline, whether that is over the March break or if it's, just looking for some more clarification so that we can expect some level of understanding of what that looks like, not just sometime in Phase 2, and also just really impressing upon the need of the situation.
So Trustee Cook, and then I will look for consensus.
Just really quickly, and I support what Trustee Sipcard just said, because Phase 2 includes so many people that, it sounds great that you're in the second phase, but you don't know where you're going to fall, so I think the timeline is very important.
Okay, so I'm looking for consensus from trustees on sending that letter that we discussed with all of those details. So just hands up by consensus.
I'm nodding my head in consent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we will get that sent out, and I much appreciation to my colleagues for that, and appreciation to our administration for their continued efforts with our local partners as well. So back to list of questions. I do have Trustee Sartori. I saw Trustee Leclerc, Trustee Hatfield, and then I have Trustee Halberstadt. So go ahead, Trustee Sartori.
And Burgess, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a question to admin about whether student trustees can receive devices. I thought that through the debate about the paperless agendas that it was mentioned that student trustees may not be able to have devices from the board, and I'm wondering if we do offer them, whether it's computers or even printers. I'm not sure why we wouldn't offer them the same as other trustees.
I believe we don't do that presently. Melissa, Madame Leboeuf, would you know the answer to that? I don't think we are offering. That's something to consider. Thank you.
Yeah, is that something?
I wasn't sure the answer until you said that, actually, Isabel.
Okay, so that's something that we can look into and make the move to support student trustees in that way. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Trustee Auclair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Our athletic field located at Sandwich Secondary is a world-class Olympic qualifying track. And I recently sent to the board, to Superintendent Armstrong, a very comprehensive package from the athletic group that usually rents our facility, with a very substantive processes put in place for protocols to operate their athletic activities. Given that it is an Olympic trial year, I was hoping that we could give consideration to sit down with that group and give them the opportunity to open that facility, because we are moving into opening different facilities up. So I'm asking if we could have a meeting and have special consideration for that specific group, primarily because it is an Olympic year. For those that don't know, Melissa Bishop used Sandwich Secondary as a training facility prior to her last Olympic activities. And when we did spend the money to upgrade the track, it was designed to be Olympic caliber. And it's a rare gem in all of Windsor and Essex County, and there is a demand, and it's a unique demand because it's an Olympic year. So I was wondering if we could do that.
Certainly, we can have a conversation. Thank you.
So I have Trustee Hatfield, Halberstadt. Trustee Burgess, did you also have a question in this queue?
Yes,
Sorry, I'm going through the list. I just wanted to make sure that I had you added to the list. I do have Trustee Hatfield, Trustee Halberstadt, Trustee Burgess, and Trustee Cheen. So go ahead, Trustee Hatfield.
Okay, thank you. My question and my concern is with regard to our school board going forward with the secondary school literacy test this year. I understand that our plan is to administer the test, even though several school boards have opted out, in that the test requirement has been waived for students graduating in 2021. And my concern is about how we're going to administer the test, the actual logistics of it, and the impact it's going to have on students and staff. It's like one more burden that they have to take on, and I'm concerned about that. So I'm wondering if administration can explain why we need to do this year.
I'm going to ask Superintendent Canty, if he could, to respond to that. And it is about an opportunity for students to meet the graduation requirement.
Thank you, Director Kelly. Through you, Madam Chair. It is, as Director Kelly said, an opportunity for students to meet the graduation requirement. It is waived this year for the students graduating this year. However, the students in grade 11 who couldn't write last year because it was canceled, and the students that are in grade 10 who have an opportunity right now, as well as our grade 12 returning students, a lot of students want the opportunity to write. You mentioned the impact on students. We understand that, and we understand that there are going to be some students who opt out for their own wellness, some families that choose not to write or have their children write, and we certainly will respect that. In terms of preparation, principals are working on a plan for their individual schools as we speak.
you have a supplemental?
Yeah, I do. I don't understand how we're taking away this instructional time from classrooms. I don't understand how we're going to maintain the cohorts logistically to do these tests. I don't understand why other boards are not doing it. And I mean, there's nothing normal about this past school year. There's absolutely nothing normal. Students are not getting, if you want to use the word normal, they're not getting their normal education. And I just don't understand why we're going to take time out to do this test that's optional this year. And I know that it's placing a burden and a concern on the staff, and I want to know, are we talking to the staff? Are we talking to the principals to have input into this decision? Or has it just been a decision of administration that we're going to do it regardless of all the other boards that aren't? You know, why is it important that we're doing it and other boards aren't? I don't get it.
Through you, Madam Chair, once again, we did have some consultation with our principals most recently last week, just figuring out the logistics through a technical standpoint. There's a lot of technical background work that needs to be done in terms of loading the students in. The cohorting has to remain in place for student safety, so that's the responsibility of the principals. And every year, you know, there's lost learning time on the literacy test every year that we have it. It is a graduation requirement for the students that are not graduating this year. And so we don't want to create that burden for them. And once again, students, any students or families that feel like it's not good for them, they have too much anxiety to do the test at this point, do not have to take the test. Yes, they have been told that, and we'll tell them again they do not need to take the test, but they will have to take it next year, that means. And for a lot of the students, like as you may or may not know, when you make an attempt at the test, you can then go into the OLC course. So and that's a literacy course you can take. And a lot of students need that course to be successful in the literacy requirement. Our fear is that if a student's in grade 12 now, non-graduating grade 12, don't write it this year, they come back and they write it, they can't do the OLC next year because they haven't made an attempt at the test. If they're not successful, then what do we do for that student? And I can't imagine the anxiety next year when we have that bottleneck of students that we're going to have. So we're just trying to give the opportunity to students that want to take the test. We're going to do that for them.
Thank you very much. Trustee Halberstadt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I think you know, I've consulted you as well as the director and Superintendent Armstrong and Trustee Sipkar, that I'd be looking for, this is kind of a communication question, that at the April 7th meeting of the Ops and Finance Committee, that there be a verbal report addressing ventilation matters before the hot weather sets in. The report would include an assessment that advises how schools are equipped with chiller air and window ventilation, and steps that have been taken and will be taken that could be taken to ensure comfort and maintenance and maintain a safe classroom environment. And these measures would also include hygienic practices for masking and shield wearing to deal with the hotter temperatures.
Sorry, Trustee Halberstadt, is this a notice of motion or a question?
The question, announcement.
Is there a question around?
Well, I would ask that there be that the administration, the Ops and Finance meeting on the 7th would address these concerns or these questions.
If I could, through you, Madam Chair, Trustee Halberstadt, would it be amenable to the fact that we would give an update where we are with ventilation projects and plans for that, and also what our plans are as we move into warmer weather? Would that be an acceptable question?
I guess so. I thought I would address that, but that'd be fine.
I just think what you asked for is a report. And you're asking for an update on what we're doing. We'd be glad to present that. That would be my point. So I'm telling him, suggesting that he perhaps ask a question. I think in my conversations with Trustee Halberstadt, you'd like an update on where we are with those things. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, rather than a notice of motion, yes.
Thank you.
Trustee Burgess.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, thank you for the previous questions, because I did have a question about the board supplied devices for student trustees. I heard that it sounded like the questioner thought it would be taken care of. In other words, board supplied devices would be supplied, but I'm not sure that that assumption can be made. But thanks for the question, and I want to hear back on that. But I have two questions. Well, one is about graduation planning. I've heard from several schools and about whether graduation planning has started, is underway, decisions made. Will it be virtual? Will it not be virtual? And there's a strong desire to have some sort of in-person or distanced in-person celebration. And school councils or schools, communities are looking to have something other than just virtual, safely done. Are we looking at that, or is the board making a definitive choice yet on what the model of graduation will be for this year?
Thank you, Superintendent Iwender.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. We have had several meetings with a group of secondary and elementary principals. We're at a point now where I'm currently putting basically plan A, B, and C together. It's been difficult dialogue because we just don't know where we're going to be come June. So we're going to put a number of things in. I did meet with the Student Senate, and they basically 100% of them did want some form of graduation with their home school in person if they could. The virtual students from the school, I also have had a couple surveys with the principals there, with the students and the families. Again, the majority, if not all, wanted to be associated with their home school. So we're incorporating that. Elementary was the same. The majority want to be associated with their home school. We're probably going to have, in a way, two, I don't want to say separate graduations, but the virtual school is going to do a little something themselves. And what we've been considering is a video clip of the virtual school, but including that in the home school for the graduation, so that there's an inclusionary piece there. We've talked about the awards, which again are somewhat difficult, but we've come down to a few things. And basically the information to the principals will be going out by the end of this week, and they can share it with their staffs and communities as well. And again, it's going to be a plan A, B, C type thing, just because we don't know where we are. As far as what secondary wanted was a little bit different than elementary. Secondary, and we've talked to all of the secondary and elementary principals. The secondary we're looking in to see if it's possible, if we can use the pavilion that's down here on the water. A number of them thought that would be great. Out in the county, they could still use that pavilion. We'd do a schedule for it. However, if there was a place, say, on their property that might be better so that the kids could get together, of course, with appropriate rules in place, they would prefer that. The pavilion, there's a company right now that we're looking into that has been running some events there, and there's a fee to it, but they provide security. Parents are able to witness, but they have to stay in their cars. They have a whole setup. They have a place to get pictures. It's socially distanced. There's a video, somebody that videotapes, and it sounds like a great opportunity. However, again, we just don't know where we're going to be at that point in time. So there will be a bunch of information that comes out in the very near future. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Supplemental, just about the awards, I want to put a fine point on that. When you ask Student Senate, you'll get a high school response. We know high school graduations are quite different for grade 8 graduations. And a lot of the questions I have are around grade 8 graduations specifically, and those awards that everyone looks forward to in the year when many of the community have learned virtually. How do you combine and how do you appreciate or laud individuals when they may not be on the the same playing field kind of thing. So, but I think it's an important consideration. So good luck in those deliberations, because I think we will need Plan A, B, C.
Yeah.
I have a supplemental question. I'll wait for round 2, Madam Chair.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Superintendent.
and so Trustee Burgess, just to follow up there with your awards piece, we do have a number of options that we're doing, but we did come down to what it sounds like at this point, and again, things can change because we just don't know where we're going to be, but subject specific, we're unanimous with secondary as far as we don't want to exclude anybody, so in school, in brick and mortar would have the awards that are subject specific. Virtual would also have subject specific awards. And then as far as there's global awards both in elementary and secondary. It might be a Rebel award or whatever it may be called. Those awards would be open to both the virtual and the in brick and mortar students. There'd be a application if they were interested that they could send to the school, and it's because it's not just typically for the 1 year that they weren't there. It's for their whole school careers and some of the things they've done. So there's a number of things that are looked at when it comes to those particular awards. So those would be open. And as far as scholarships and bursaries, it would be the exact same thing. The people could apply to them and be awarded them. And so it's both virtual and brick and mortar for that.
Thank you very much. Trustee Burgess, I do have you for a second question, but I'm going to go to Trustee Cheen. She has a question.
Oh, I have 2 questions. Yeah, I can go ahead. Yeah, and I know we have expand targeted COVID-19 test in 4 schools, primary schools. I wonder what's the situation, the result of the test, and also is there any plan to go ahead with other schools for the test, asymptomatic test? Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Pike?
Thank you for that. Yes, we did have our week 1, which was 4 elementary schools in the N9A postal code. We do work with our other coterminous boards, so it's a really community event as we go through. Last Saturday, we had another one for the Leamington area of schools that was conducted at Leamington Secondary School. And then this coming week, we're announcing that one on Thursday based on data coming from our health unit. So we are mobilizing all 4 of our boards together to make sure that people know this is a community event for people to come through, so they're not worried about which school they should go to. So we decided to do that as a community.
Oh, can I ask? So eventually, all the schools will be arrange this test?
At this point, I can't guarantee anything. It's really coming from the reports coming from the health unit on which areas within our Windsor-Essex that they're seeing a high percentage of students who are being diagnosed with COVID-19. So
Okay,
we're
thank
taking
you.
all that data from them. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a first question from Student Trustee Unger.
Yeah, so Student Trustee Suave and I are also seeking a letter by consensus to be written to the Ministry of Education requesting funding for menstrual hygiene products in all Ontario school washrooms. We met recently with the education lead of the Toronto Youth Cabinet, and he would like us to put forward this initiative to get free menstrual hygiene products in all Ontario school washrooms. And of course, we're hugely passionate about it, and also we want to continue and further the work of our former student trustee, Anumita. We already have this kind of instituted in our own board, which is really exciting, and so we thought getting consensus from trustees to put forward this letter that all Ontario schools could benefit from this and gain this equitable access. So we're just seeking that letter by consensus tonight.
So that question is put to trustees, a letter by consensus to the ministry to support the provision of menstrual products for all boards in Ontario as part of their funding initiatives. So do we have any?
On that, Chair?
Do you have a question on that, Trustee Burgess?
I do have a question on that, but it's about process as much as content.
Okay.
So to you, Madam Chair, I would ask at trustee question period, the use of consent for letters. You already mentioned, I think, I thought it was clear that there is some unease of using just an opportunity to get consent on a letter that is political advocacy or has financial ramifications or has system-wide, results. So I'm a little leery of using it at trustee question period. Having said that, I'm in support of this, but I wonder if this is another opportunity to take an issue to the OPSPA board table. And since it has, if I can hear correctly from student trustee Suave, that it's for the benefit of all boards, all students in boards, that the province pick up the tab to supply menstrual products in public schools.
Thank you, Trustee Burgess. I did note earlier that there's been some unease about the practice of doing letters by consensus. We have done one this evening at trustee question period. So there is some precedent this evening. And so I invite trustees to give their displeasure verbally if they do not consent to this. And then the student trustees did send an email around to trustees earlier to let them know that this is something that they would be bringing forward tonight. And so I'll continue to do practice as we have it now, unless we want something changed in our bylaws to that effect. So because we have some precedent this evening to do it, I will continue on with that practice right now. So question
through you to the student trustees, is that something that we can bring forward to the office table too? Because it's not just a letter, it's something that we as a board can endorse. So through you, if I could, to them.
Certainly. Student trustee Unger, she's just wondering whether that's something that could go. We sit on on OPSPA, and Trustee Burgess is the director that sits for our and as representative of our board, and she's wondering if that's something that you would like for her to bring up to the OPSPA table, and perhaps there's some political action that we can do as an association.
Yeah, I think we definitely appreciate that for sure. I think in addition to being sent to the Ministry of Education, because that was the original intent, but having it additionally to OPSPA would be wonderful. I think getting the word out and getting that push in any way that we can would for sure we would support.
Thank you very much. Do we have any discussion on the letter by consensus? I'm looking for consensus by trustees to send this letter. Anyone opposed to this? Sending it to the minister, to the minister.
I just have a couple questions. I know we're bringing these products in September, and I'm just wondering if there's any cost estimate in our particular board with regard to providing those products.
Thank you. Through you. I've met with Facility Services a couple times to establish the timelines, the products, and the communication protocol in terms of getting our feminine hygiene products in our schools. So we've gathered information from the schools in terms of how many washrooms they would like these dispensers to be in. We've got just a rough estimate at this point. The number of dispensers that we're estimating is 350, so it's going to be 105,000 just to put in the dispensers. And then from that, they're estimating for one box of each is $12,000, and we're not quite sure how many boxes each school will take each year. So those are very, very rough estimates of the single feminine hygiene products that are going to be in the schools. Just to let you know too, just to toot our neighbors' horn in terms of the Windsor Goodfellows, they did donate last year a substantial amount of feminine hygiene products for our schools. Those were packages as opposed to individuals, which have been at our schools and being distributed to our students free of charge now. And sometimes it's not just single, it's actual packages that are being sent to them. So I just want to shout a big shout out to Windsor Goodfellows for their great partnership. Thank you.
Okay, so just to reiterate, it's $105,000 for our schools, and what was the secondary?
That's just for the actual dispensers and plus actually putting the labor into it. It's 105,000 plus tax. And then the supply to the schools just for the first time that we're filling up the products is estimated to be $12,000. We're not quite sure if that $12,000 is going to be a monthly fee or not, but at this point, that's all we can estimate.
Okay, and is there a concern over possible theft of these products in the schools? And what that might cost?
There may be. People need them, and they may take them because they do need them. Like I had said, with the partnership we have with the Windsor Goodfellows, which I'm not sure is going to be continuing, but we do provide some products for students. And prior to having this windfall of donations from the Windsor Goodfellows, schools were providing some products to students on a regular basis.
Thank you. So I'm looking for consensus on that letter, just by show of hands, if I could get consensus for that letter. Anyone opposed to it? So,
Consent.
okay. So if we have opposition to the letter, we have to put it forward by notice of motion. So speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. So I'm going through two second questions. I have Trustee Burgess, Trustee Cheen for second questions, Trustee Hatfield. And then maybe we can wrap it up after that. Trustee Burgess, go ahead with your second question.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, if I could ask some questions. They don't have to be answered this evening, but they could come back and just as an update as business arising from minutes or whatever in the next meeting. So we've talked about having the opportunity for board-supplied devices to help with the motion that we passed L2 earlier this evening because we understand that there might be a gap where our student trustees don't have the digital devices, and unless they personally own them and have the wherewithal to have that device, they're disadvantaged to receiving a digital agenda package. But my question earlier, I want noted in this section, if I could, about the our procurement practice of 100% post-consumer paper being used within our board. That would reduce the forest use significantly. And my question is, do we have other practices about our paper usage? I know we have the single-use plastic committee, but do we have any other practices that we can make inroads on, like having a stated practice of making sure that all of our printing is on is double-sided, for example, or any of those things? Or is it just school by school or person by person, or we just model certain things in certain schools? Do we have practices that reduces our use of forest-sourced paper?
Who would like to take that one? Director Kelly, looks like you.
I'll start. Thank you. Over to Director Kelly. Yeah, I'm not sure that we have any board-wide practices. We do have some things, though, that we do. I know individual schools certainly make commitments in particular areas. I think Superintendent Armstrong and maybe Superintendent Houston have something they're going to say.
I'll try, and then I'll turn it over to Superintendent Houston. We do have a system called PaperCut that we use for printing at the board. So typically, printing does not spit out of a printer. You need to go and you need to log in order to get your print job. So it's a little bit more intentional when people go to print, and it typically defaults automatically to double-sided. You actually have to go in and do the extra clicks to get it to go on one-sided. So I can offer that. I don't know if anyone has anything else.
And then that is not just unique to the board office. That's for the entire system. So it's both for our staff and our students. Many times we would go to a printer and you'd find a pile of printing that was abandoned by someone. That can't happen anymore because they have to punch in a code right at the printer or the photocopier to release that work to them. So it becomes a lot more accountable for those that are printing.
Supplemental, Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
To the same motion, just to follow up L2, something else we heard about was the distribution costs, those associated with the courier, having a tour of the mailroom and what the courier does, etc. However, we receive other things in our courier. We receive correspondence, financial things, bills, reports, magazines, mail that has been sent from stakeholders through the school board. Those things would still need to be couriered to our individual addresses. I'm wondering, since the default is digital, we're going to opt in if we want to get paper packages. How would that affect the courier delivery to trustees? Do we anticipate L2 is going to change in that regard? If you don't get the digital package, is there another way we can get those other things to trustees? Mail them or get them at the local closest school?
That one. Okay.
I think Melissa, if I could, Melissa has an idea here.
I think we would just put them in the teal folders at a board meeting. Or trustees could pick them up.
Yep, and should they need to be delivered to say Trustee Burgess or Trustee Olmsted, if they're not able to come, we can arrange for that, certainly. Certainly. All right, Trustee Chin and Trustee Hatfield. Trustee Chin, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. And my question is regarding the current violence to the Asian community, anti-hate, especially in America. I know in Canada it's much better, but the violence still happened here and there, and it's already over the degree that we can afford. So I wonder if our board can take any action to avoid these issues, anti-hate to Asian community. Thank you.
Superintendent Pike.
Thank you for that question. Actually, today I was just reading some information from our Equity Inclusive Officer to put things on the website. There is a new curriculum package that's come out between Toronto District School Board and ETFO, the Teachers Federation, which talks about that and how to teach it in the classroom. So that will be released to the system, as well as we're just researching some specific mental health supports as well. So that will be on our website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think that's some of the work that we can do through our anti-racism policies and things like that. We'll address some of those issues as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Trustee Hatfield.
Thank you. I have a second question, but it's back to my first topic of the literacy test, because I forgot to ask this. So my understanding is that the literacy test has to be completed in person, can't be done virtually. So what happens to all the students that are doing virtual learning only? Do they become disadvantaged?
Great question through you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, the students that are at the virtual school are not able to do the literacy test this year because it has to be proctored by a teacher in person. I have a daughter in grade 11. She wasn't permitted to write last year for obvious reasons. She's at the virtual school, so she has one shot next year to write it. So I'm living this as a parent as well. Very difficult decisions, but we're living in a pandemic.
That kind of goes against the grain of our trying to be equitable to all students. It just sits wrong with me.
It doesn't sit great with any of us, but we're giving the students that we can give the opportunity to write, we're giving them the opportunity to write.
Thank you very much. So trustees, we are at notices of motion right on time again tonight. I like this. Any notices of motion? Oh, here we go. Down to announcements. Oh, Trustee Happy.
I have a weird announcement to make. So, a month ago, there was an issue about face shields and whether or not the staff had the opportunity to have an alternate, like goggles. This was an issue a month ago, which was the last time I was at a board meeting. So today, I called in to see if I could get a board-approved face shield, because I was going to actually wear it today with my mask, because I wanted to experience what our staff were trying to deal with. And much to my delight, when I called in for that face shield, I found out that since a month ago, we have offered alternatives to our staff, which I think is a great thing. And I wanted trustees to know that, so that staff can request goggles, approved other eye coverings other than the face shields. I did have, I think shortly after that meeting a month ago, I did receive a picture from a staff person in her classroom. She had the face shield, the mask on, and the face shield was totally fogged over. And so I thought, oh my gosh, that's not a good situation, and I'm going to try it out myself. So I'm happy to say I didn't have to do it, because I can barely breathe with this mask on. But anyway, thank you to our administration for making those alternatives available. I'm sure that the staff will appreciate that.
I like those announcements. Thank you. Anyone else with an announcement this evening? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn. We don't need a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.